Picture this, a place where ocean waves crash into underwater caves with tremendous force, shooting giant fountains of water straight into the sky. Spray flies 30 meters high, rainbows dance in the droplets, and tourists excitedly pull out their phones for selfies. These are Hawaii's Blowholes, one of the most spectacular natural attractions on the islands. Every day, hundreds of tourists come here. They walk to the edge of the cliff where black lava rocks meet the turquoise ocean. It seems like nature created the perfect spot for photo shoots. Ocean waves roll in with clockwork regularity, and when the water hits the underwater cave, magic happens. But behind this mesmerizing beauty lurks a deadly trap. Every year, rescue services get calls from the same coordinates. People vanish without a trace. Others are found mangled on the sharp lava rocks. The thing is, blowholes don't just shoot water out. Between the geysers come periods of calm. And in these moments, the caves turn into giant vacuum cleaners. The suction force is so powerful it can drag a person into the cave in a split second. There's no escaping once you're inside. Locals know the truth about these places. Hawaiians call them the Earth's breath and never get too close to the edge. But tourists only see the beauty and can't imagine what force lies beneath their feet. The lava rocks look solid, but they're actually fragile and slippery from ocean spray. In July 2011, the Potts family is preparing for their long-awaited vacation. For 51-year-old David, these are his first days off in years of non-stop work. The man works as a welder on construction sites in California, up at 5 in the morning, working until sunset, coming home late in the evening. A vacation for him is a luxury he couldn't afford. Especially now, with new expenses, medical bills. David's fiancée, 48-year-old Tika Hick, is battling cancer. The diagnosis came 6 months ago. Chemotherapy drains all her strength. The woman can barely get out of bed, has lost her hair, constantly feels nauseous. A difficult surgery lies ahead with an unpredictable outcome. The family budget is stretched to the breaking point. Medical insurance only covers part of the expenses. David works overtime, but there's still not enough money. A trip to Hawaii is just a dream. And then a small miracle happens. Family members learn about the situation and decide to pool money for a gift. They understand this might be their last chance to spend time together while Tika can still travel. On July 7th, 2011, the plane lands at Maui's airport. Tika had a rough flight, but when she steps out of the cabin and feels the warm ocean breeze, a smile appears on her face for the first time in weeks. David can't believe his eyes. He's dreamed of seeing Hawaii his whole life. Volcanic peaks rise from the ocean, slopes covered in tropical greenery, beaches stunning in their variety of colors. At the hotel, they're greeted with orchid leis. Their room faces directly onto the beach. Tika sits on the balcony and just watches the ocean. But David wants to explore the island. The man pulls out a guidebook and studies the attractions. That's when his gaze stops on the description of Nakalele Point Blowhole, a natural fountain on the eastern coast. The guidebook says, ocean waves create geysers up to 30 meters high. A must-see. Imagine, honey, he tells Tika. Ocean water shoots out of the rocks like a geyser. It's a real wonder of nature. Tika is tired after the flight, but sees how her loved one's eyes light up. In recent months, she's rarely seen him this excited. The woman agrees to the excursion. She has no idea that in a few hours, this place will become the scene of unimaginable tragedy. The next morning, the family gets into a rental car and heads to Maui's eastern coast. The road leads through sugarcane plantations and fishing villages. Outside the window, palm trees and blooming hibiscus bushes flash by. GPS guides them along the Hana Highway, one of the most scenic roads in the world. Mountains rise on the left, ocean laps on the right. Tika feels better than she has in months. The sea air helps fight the nausea. None of them know they're driving to one of the most dangerous places on the planet, that in an hour their lives will change forever. After half an hour of driving, the Potts family notices cars parked along the roadside. About 20 vehicles with license plates from different states. Typical scene for a popular attraction. David parks next to a red Jeep with California plates. At the beginning of the trail stands a faded wooden sign, paint peeling from salt air and tropical sun. The text is barely readable. Nakalele Point, natural attraction, be careful on rocks. At the bottom, in small print, added in 3 languages. Management is not responsible for accidents. Tika reads the warning and frowns slightly. Maybe this isn't such a good idea, she says, but David is already taking out his camera and checking the battery. The man is full of enthusiasm. He's come all this way to see a wonder of nature. The trail leads through thorny bushes and piles of black volcanic rocks. Lava solidified here thousands of years ago, but still looks fresh and sharp. The stones are hot from the sun. The air shimmers with heat. Walking isn't easy. The trail disappears completely in places. You have to climb over boulders and push through thorny branches. Tika gets tired quickly. Chemotherapy has severely weakened her strength. Every few minutes she asks to stop and rest, but then the edge of the cliff appears ahead. The roar of the ocean and excited tourist voices can be heard. The family emerges onto the viewing platform, a wide section of solidified lava right above the ocean. And then David sees what he's traveled all this way for. The blowhole looks exactly like in the guidebook photos, but in person makes a much stronger impression. It's a perfectly round opening in the black lava, just over 1 meter in diameter. The edges are polished to a shine by millions of gallons of seawater. Most of the time, the opening looks like an ordinary hole in the rock. But once a minute, magic happens. A huge wave crashes into the underwater cave beneath the cliff. Water compresses in the narrow tunnel. Pressure builds. And then from the hole, with a deafening roar, a column of water 3 stories high erupts. The fountain holds for several seconds, then breaks apart into millions of drops. Water flies in all directions, drenching viewers with salt spray, shimmering in the sunlight with all the colors of the rainbow. Tourists shriek with delight and snap photos. David is enchanted. He moves closer and closer to the edge, looking for the best angle for a shot. Tika stays at a safe distance, about 10 meters from the opening. She photographs the man against the ocean backdrop. Tourists crowd around everywhere. A young couple from Japan takes selfies. A German family with 3 children discusses how the natural mechanism works. American students laugh and splash each other with water. Everyone waits for the next eruption, and here it begins. Water in the opening starts to bubble. A growing rumble from the depths can be heard. Tourists ready their cameras. David leans over the edge to film the fountain from the closest possible distance. At this moment, lava wet from spray becomes slippery as ice. David loses his balance. He tries to grab the edge, but the black rock crumbles under his fingers. The man falls into the opening with a scream of terror. Everything happens in split seconds. Witnesses only see a person disappear into the black hole, as if swallowed by the earth. Tika screams in horror. Tourists back away from the edge in shock. And in the next instant, a 30-meter column of water erupts from the opening with a roar. But now, no one is photographing this spectacle. Everyone understands, down below, in the underwater cave, there's a human being. The fountain subsides, spray settles on the rocks, and then from the depths comes something incredible. A weak but distinct voice. "Help! I'm here! I'm alive!" It's David. By some miracle, he survived the fall and can even speak. Tourists rush to the edge of the opening. They shout down, trying to establish contact with the victim. "David! David! Can you hear us?" "Yes, I'm down here. I can't get out." The voice comes from somewhere in the bowels of the earth, distorted by echo and the sound of water. But the words are clear. That means the man is conscious and able to speak. One of the tourists takes out his cell phone and calls rescue services. The signal is poor. They're in a remote area of the island. But the call goes through. The dispatcher takes the report of a person who fell into a blowhole. The countdown begins. A rescue operation on one of the most dangerous sections of Hawaii's coast. Tourists shout into the opening, trying to encourage David. Tika sobs at the cliff's edge, unable to believe what's happening. Just a minute ago, they were admiring nature's wonder, and now her fiancé is trapped in a death trap. "Hold on, David. Help is on the way," shouts one of the witnesses. "I'm trying," comes the answer from the depths. "It's very dark here, and cold. The water is rising." The last words make everyone go cold. If water in the cave is rising, the man has very little time left, maybe just minutes until the next powerful blast. And here it begins. Water in the opening starts bubbling again. The rumble from the earth's depths grows louder. Tourists retreat from the edge in horror. They know what's about to happen. The next wave hits the blowhole with double force. a column of water shoots 40 meters high. The thunder is so loud, it drowns out everything around. Spray flies 100 meters in all directions. When the fountain subsides, everyone freezes in anticipation. Maybe David will call out again. Maybe he'll miraculously survive a second time. But from the depths comes only the sound of water, an echo of waves in underground tunnels. David's voice is never heard again. The man has disappeared for the second and final time. One of the tourists named Bo can't accept what's happening. He's a young surfer from California, used to extreme water situations. He tries to descend into the opening on a rope he found in his car. "I'll try to reach him," the guy shouts. "Maybe he's still alive down there." But other tourists hold him back. They understand. Descending into the blowhole is tantamount to suicide. The narrow tunnel is filled with water under enormous pressure. The next wave will turn any person into mush against the walls of the lava tube. Tika calls David's brother in California. His wife answers. "Hi, Tika. How are things in Hawaii? Has David taken 1,000,000 photos yet?" "Something terrible happened," Tika sobs. "David, he fell into some hole in the rock. He got sucked inside. We can't get him out." Long silence, then a frightened voice. "What do you mean? What hole? Tika, explain properly what happened." But explaining properly is impossible. How do you tell someone their brother fell through the earth and disappeared? That nature swallowed him in seconds? It sounds like nonsense or a nightmare. The Maui Fire Department rescue team arrives at the scene at 2:45 p.m. 3 vehicles with flashing lights, a team of 12 people, special water rescue equipment. But at first glance at the situation, it becomes clear. This will be an extremely difficult operation. Lieutenant Wayne Ibarra is a rescue service veteran with 20 years' experience. In his career, he's pulled people from the ocean, from burning houses, from car crashes. But he's facing something like this for the first time. Ibarra examines the blowhole and shakes his head. A narrow tunnel about 1 meter in diameter goes vertically down through dense lava rock. Further down is a horizontal section that connects to the ocean. The exact length and configuration of the underwater passages is unknown. Descent into the tunnel is technically impossible, he tells his team. Powerful water flows will smash anyone against the walls. Even in special gear, a person won't survive. But the rescuers don't give up. They call in Coast Guard helicopter Dolphin and begin aerial reconnaissance. Maybe the underwater tunnel has another exit to the ocean. Maybe David was thrown out somewhere on shore. The helicopter surveys 1 kilometer of coastline in both directions from the blowhole. Pilots carefully examine every bay, every cliff, every stretch of beach. They search for signs of a second opening or a body in the water. Simultaneously, rescuers on jet skis comb the coastal waters. They know if David was thrown into the ocean, currents could have carried him a considerable distance. So, the search is conducted within 1 kilometer radius of the blowhole. But the ocean keeps its secrets. The underwater tunnel system of the blowhole has been forming for thousands of years. Lava tubes interweave in a complex labyrinth extending to unknown depths. Even local geologists don't know the exact structure of these caves. Hours pass, the sun sets, and there are still no signs of David Potts. By evening on July 9th, it becomes clear. This is no ordinary rescue operation. The search zone expands to 3 kilometers of coastline. Every cliff, every cave, every section of reef, everything is examined from air and water. Volunteers join the rescue team, local fishermen who know these waters like the back of their hand, amateur divers with their own equipment. Even tourists from nearby hotels come to help search. The most difficult part of the operation is underwater work. Divers descend to the base of the cliff and examine caves and crevices in the lava rock. They hope to find an exit from the blowhole, or at least David's body. But stormy weather hampers the work. Waves 2 meters high crash against the rocks and raise clouds of sand. Underwater visibility doesn't exceed 3 meters. Even with powerful lights, divers see only murky greenish water. Currents are so strong that divers can only work in short 15 to 20-minute sessions. Then they get thrown to the surface and have to spend time redescending. Every hour counts. Everyone understands. If David is alive and somewhere in the underwater caves, he has very little time left. A person can last weeks without food, days without water. But in cold ocean water, it's a matter of hours. The search continues until dark without results. Helicopter searchlights illuminate the coastal waters. But the ocean doesn't give up its secrets. Rescuers check every report of a found body, but it turns out to be either floating debris or marine animals. Lieutenant Ibarra gathers David's family and honestly explains the situation. He doesn't want to give false hope. In 20 years of work, he's learned to tell the truth, however bitter it might be. I have to tell you, the chances of finding David alive decrease with each hour. Cold ocean water, possible injuries from falling into the blowhole, lack of food and fresh water. Everything is working against him. Tika listens silently. Tears dried up long ago. In these days, she's gone through all stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining with fate, depression. Now, only acceptance remains. Next to her stands little Indigo, David's 7-year-old son from his first marriage. The boy doesn't fully understand what's happening. He asks when Daddy will return from his underwater adventure. Tika and Indigo spend their days at the rescue operation base camp. It's a tent on the shore where they coordinate searches and receive reports from volunteers. The woman doesn't want to leave. She hopes to hear good news, or at least get some certainty. On the second day of searches, Tika makes a symbolic farewell gesture. She buys a bouquet of tropical flowers at a local shop: orchids, birds of paradise, hibiscus. She approaches the cliff edge and throws the flowers into the ocean waves. "If you can hear me, dear, I love you. I'll miss you every day." The current catches the flowers and carries them into the open ocean, as boundless and unpredictable as human life. On July 11th at 5:30 p.m., Lieutenant Ibarra makes the hardest decision of his career. After consulting with command, he announces the end of the active phase of the search operation. "We did everything we could. We examined every square meter within a 3-kilometer radius, checked all caves, all crevices, all possible places where the victim could have ended up. Unfortunately, the result is negative. The case is reclassified as missing without a trace. This means searches will continue, but not on such a scale. Patrol boats will survey the coastline for several more days. Local residents are asked to report any findings. David's brother Bo Hick flies in from California and demands the search continue. He's ready to hire private divers, pay for additional helicopters, spend all family savings. But rescue services explain, a person cannot survive more than 72 hours in cold ocean water without medical help. 4 days have already passed. Even if David somehow miraculously stayed alive, finding him in the labyrinth of underwater caves is practically impossible. Tika receives the news with outward calm. She already knew it would be this way. Deep down, she understood there are no miracles, that her loved one died the moment he fell into the blowhole. The operation will take place on the scheduled day, July 17th, she tells Lieutenant Ibarra. David would want me to fight for my life. The woman returns to California. Ahead lies surgery, long recovery, an uncertain future. But now she'll fight alone, without support from the person who loved her more than life. Today, hundreds of tourists still come to Nakalele Point Blowhole. They park cars at the same roadside, walk the same trail through thorny bushes, see the same warning signs that were put up after David Potts' tragedy. Most tourists keep a safe distance, photograph water fountains from afar, admire nature's power without putting themselves at risk. They remember the story of someone who didn't return home from this place. But there are always those who want to get closer, who aren't stopped by warnings or stories of tragedies. Young people with phones in their hands, bloggers looking for the perfect shot, adventurers who live for thrills. "Just a second, take my picture here," shouts a girl to her boyfriend and stands on the very edge of the cliff. Lava wet from spray gleams under her feet like a mirror. "Don't stand so close," warn other tourists. But how can you get 1 million Instagram likes playing by the rules? A guy from Germany descends almost to the very edge of the opening and takes a selfie against the backdrop of a geyser ready to erupt. Water is already bubbling below. Seconds remain until the powerful blast. But he manages to jump back at the last moment. A family with children lets their 10-year-old son run up to the blowhole and wave at the camera. "Don't worry, we're right here," the mother reassures concerned witnesses. Every day someone plays with fate at the edge of the abyss. Every day the ocean patiently waits for its next victim. Because human nature hasn't changed in the thousands of years, we're still drawn to where it's dangerous, where it's forbidden, where we can feel alive. And sooner or later, David Potts' story will repeat. Someone will slip again on wet rocks. Someone will again disappear into the black hole, leaving nothing behind but the echo of a scream and the grief of loved ones. Maui's blowholes remain as beautiful and as deadly, and tourists continue coming for unforgettable emotions, not understanding that some emotions can be the last of your life. David Pott's tragedy shook the entire island of Maui. The story made all local newspapers and TV reports. Authorities installed additional warning signs in 5 languages, tightened patrols of dangerous coastal areas. But just a few weeks passed, and tourists began coming to Nakalele Point Blowhole again parking cars by the roadside, again walking the trail through thorny bushes to the cliff's edge. The thing is, forbidden fruit is always sweet. The more they talk about danger, the stronger the desire to experience it, especially among young people who consider themselves invulnerable. New warning signs only fuel interest. Caution! Deadly danger! Tourists read and think, wow, this is definitely worth visiting. Social media does its work. Instagram hashtags appear. Maui Blowhole, just dangerous places, air extreme tourism. Bloggers compete to take the most risky selfie on the edge of the abyss. Every like and comment pushes toward new recklessness. Rescue services are in despair. Lieutenant Ibarra gives interviews to local media and explains, "We can't put a fence along the entire coast. Hawaii is a natural park. People come here to feel the wild beauty of the ocean. But beauty and danger go hand in hand here." And indeed, despite warnings, despite tragic stories, despite eyewitness accounts, tourists still approach the blowhole for unforgettable emotions, for the perfect shot, for the right to say, "I was there where others were afraid to go." Everyone thinks it won't happen to them, that they're more careful, more agile, luckier than David Potts. That tragedy is the exception, not the rule. But the ocean is patient. It waits, and sooner or later will claim its victim again. Because human nature doesn't change, and the laws of physics even less so. Maui's blowholes remain among the most beautiful and dangerous places on Earth. Every day they attract hundreds of amazed viewers, and every day someone decides to step a little closer to the edge, a little closer to the abyss. David Potts' story isn't just an accident. It's a reminder that nature doesn't forgive mistakes, that beauty can be deadly, and that sometimes one wrong step separates life from eternity.